And we're back. Good afternoon, unless you're in Hawaii. And welcome back to Threat Watch, the 15-minute or so podcast from Lumifi Cyber, where we dig into the news of the week and try to make it make sense. So I'm back with my colleague, Fred Langston, EVP of Professional Services here at Lumifi. Fred and I will both be in Scottsdale next week for the Lumifi Secure Summit. And I am looking forward to this, especially to the guest speakers who are all friends of ours.
Yeah, this is a great set of people that we're bringing together. We've got Mike Borgia from Davis Wright Tremaine, one of the, I think, leading cybersecurity lawyers out there. Brian Hurd from Stroh's Freeburg. If you want to know anything in the world about cyber insurance, I don't know that there's a better source anywhere. And Sean Murphy from BECU, somebody we've known for a very long time and a very prominent CISO. So we're going to have some fantastic content, great panels. Can't wait.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing these guys. You know, we so rarely see people in 3D anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's talk about the news. Three retail chains hit almost simultaneously in the UK, probably from the Clio file transfer product. Power outage in Spain and Portugal that was a suspected cyber attack, but I think that's been cleared. Ascension Healthcare, and there was a PR request that I did this morning about this, was compromised 4 times by third parties, kind of over the course of like 3 months. This is crazy, but we're not going to talk about any of that. What we are going to talk about is what I teased on Tuesday. And this, once again, comes from the I Told You So department. So I don't know if you remember me talking about this, Fred, but I was talking about how the 5 crime families in New York in the 1930s and 40s didn't become powerful until they came under centralized governance. And I said, if that ever happens with all these cybercrime gangs, we're cooked because of the amount of money they can use to buy senators, okay? And now it's happening. So Dragon Force, okay? Here's an article. Dragon Force expands ransomware model with white labeling branding scheme. Okay, so they're all in on this, ransomware as a service affiliate model. Dragon Force Ransomware Group announces it's forming a hacking cartel. Dragon Ransomware as a Service pro-Russian hacktivist group aims to build on the 5 families' crime reputation. These are bad waters we're getting into here, man.
Yeah.
You've been reading this?
Yeah, this is scary stuff. We're finally entering the cartel world. I mean, we know what the drug cartels have, frankly, reshaped the entire world in terms of security and what's going on. I would not expect anything less from what is going to happen when these come together. And it's really interesting because they have created a full business. I say this a lot, right? It's a business and it's very corporate, but this is everything that you would expect in a corporation, right? It's got a PR department, it's got an HR department, they've got thousands of affiliates that work for them. That might be your partners in a regular business context, and they're basically enabling this giant infrastructure. So they're one of their claims is we're going to manage what they call unlimited brands. It means we can attack ESXi, NAS, BSD, Windows, everything. So it's a one-stop shop. They are going to maintain like the CNC infrastructure. They're going to maintain the payment infrastructure. And all these affiliates are going to use these resources to basically create, ransomware attacks. So we have ransomware as a service completely operationalized. One of the interesting things when the Dragon Force Group put out their press releases, because they're official press releases. Matter of fact, on the last week's podcast, they even mentioned one of them, Mike. And what they said is, we're not going to attack certain healthcare, was their term.
Right, that's
because
right.
We're good people. We're not evil. We have empathy, which I find pretty repugnant, frankly, to be able to say. So they said, we're not going to attack cancer patients or anything or heart related. How are they going to? I don't get how that's going to happen. If you're ransomwaring a hospital, what you're going to say, oh, no, let's not get the radiological oncology cancer treatment machines.
Especially if it's through this affiliate model, right? How are you going to control what your affiliates do?
Exactly. Oh, they're there for the money, right? That's it.
They can have policies about stuff like this, but, this is a very opportunistic crime. And if your ticket is punched, your ticket is punched.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the thing that scares me the most is what you're alluding to, Mike, is now if you think of how like the mob, infrastructure works with, godfathers and capos and consigliaries, and then all the street soldiers are called soldiers, right? Basically, we're enabling anybody to become a soldier for these with basically no experience and a very low cost of entry. This is not good, right? This is actually, I think, starting to appeal even to some of the disaffected Americans. They're disaffected with the economy and the way that things are going. Scattered Spider, they believe, was part of the that M&S hack
Right.
of the British
In
retailer.
the UK, that's one of the retailers, right?
In the UK, right? So this is all scary, Mike. Well, I don't know what you think, but scary.
Yeah, well, I mean, to the point about lowering the bar so that anybody can get into crime, I think that cat is already out of the bag, right? You bring up Scattered Spider, that's a bunch of Gen Z teens and 20-somethings who are in the US and the UK. These are not people in Russia and Uzbekistan or wherever, right? So it's already happening. And I don't think the government is going to focus on this. I mean, given what we're seeing going on in terms of priorities. And so much money is being lost to cybercrime, and all they do is use that money to get better at what they do. And your point about, disaffected people because of the economy and things like this is going to be really attractive to them. I, I wish we really had a strategy about things like this, but we don't. We put out fires when the fire starts, right? We don't have some strategy to counter something like this. And so I think this story leads right into the next one. Something else that you and I say all the time, right? Focus on minimizing the impact of what is now a foreseeable event, right? The article is why our industry must shift from prevention to cyber resilience. And, it goes down this list of bullet points, right? Here's these things you should do. Rapid data recovery, make sure you have immutable backups, right? And I think importantly, adopt a minimal viable operations concept. Okay, so you got to get ready to take this punch and get back up off the mat before the 10 count, right? That's where the planning has to go in. Yes, you need to have preventive controls, but you have to admit they're going to fail. You are up against basically an economy the size of a country.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of resources they can put in this stuff, and you don't. All right, what's your take here?
Yeah. So it was a fascinating, somebody made this very similar statement online recently, and there was a long, thread about it. Yeah. And somebody came out and said, well, I think this is crazy. If we spent all our monies on preventative controls, we would stop the problem and there wouldn't be a need to manage impact or resiliency. And that was a head scratching shake ahead. How did somebody come to this conclusion? As we all know, it takes one user, right, to blow the whole. You can have $25 million worth of defenses built up, and one user can break that all down by clicking on an email. So that goes against any reality that I know. But the bottom line too is, where are you spending your money, right? We have to spend some on prevention, but you've got a significant amount to your resiliency, to being able to minimize the impact. As you mentioned, and one thing it still shocks me, if you have immutable backups and you have protected those immutable backups, the only thing you have to fear at that point is data exfiltration and being sold on the dark web, because it is proven that you can recover faster from backup, oftentimes twice as fast as you can from getting a ransomware key and trying to decrypt systems and cobble things back together so they're working again. This concept of we're going to pay the ransom, that should only be about data exfiltration or data extortion. The fact that we're still doing it is because people don't have immutable backups. That goes against every shred of empirical evidence we have. This is critical. This is foundational. This is, frankly, if you're going to build an IT organization, start there. Yeah. Right? Start with immutable backups. Then you're guaranteeing that you're going to be able to get up off the mat. And why is this stuff important? Because it's foreseeable that you're going to get popped. You say it, Mike. We all say it. I guess the only heartening thing is now when I go around, especially to rural hospitals, I do these driving tours through the Midwest of rural hospitals, trying to just help them in any way we can. They finally realize, yeah, I'm a target. No, I'm not too small. No, I'm not too obscure. No, I don't have enough money. That is absolutely irrelevant. And as you say all the time, the scanner, which is going to find you and then do initial exploits to try to get initial access, which will then sell through initial and access broker like Dragon Force, that it doesn't matter who you are. Your computer doesn't care. It's just going to attack you because it found that vulnerability it can take advantage of.
Yeah. Well, and so you brought up the word foreseeable, right? And this is starting to show up more and more in these class action suits, right? Along with the word negligence, okay? If you fail to take steps to mitigate a foreseeable risk, you're guilty of negligence, okay? That's paraphrasing the standard of foreseeability from the legal profession. All right. And I'll say this again. The ability to quickly bounce back will have everything to do with whether or not you end up with that civil litigation suit and these accusations of negligence, right? I mean, you need to take these steps, put out the grease fire on the stove. The house will never be engulfed in flames, right? And, looking at this from the lens of risk management, do everything that you can to reduce the likelihood of this happening, all right? Right? That's your preventive controls, filter your email, train your users, do all that stuff, right? But you got to admit, you're not going to be able to go glove to glove with these characters and win, right? So you have to invest in this impact management, right? Impact minimization. And, the only way to do that is to monitor, investigate, respond, recover, right? And that means have a plan. And what you monitor is important because it's got to be your network, your endpoints, the cloud, everything. And you need to do that using behavioral analytics, right? Not the signature of the Emotet Trojan. Ooh, we just saw that, right? But this asset on the network has done something so weird. We've never seen that before. We better investigate that. Those are the tip-offs right there. They've gotten so sneaky. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I do want to add one thing that popped up from out of the RSA conference, which I thought was fascinating, because you're going to talk a little bit at the end about some of the things about RSA. But interestingly, the number of articles, you look at these things that rank the importance of articles coming out of particular events. It turns out MDR was the number one finding, if you will, out of RSA this year, that it has become table stakes. You have to have
MDR, managed detection and response.
Correct, right. And they say it's the full triad, right? It's cloud, it's network, and it's endpoint. And if you don't have all three, you're like this, one hand over one eye, right? So I thought that was fascinating.
Okay. Yes, we will talk about RSA, but not in that context. Okay, so this next topic is kind of touchy. But it's showing up in the news a lot, so we're going to talk about it here, all right? So buckle up. So how in China they pervasively monitor the communications of their citizens. They apply a social score, which is used along with all the facial recognition they do to, like, for example, deny access to a business or a restaurant because of insufficient loyalty to the party line, right? Well, that's starting to happen here. So Mr. Musk has acquired and is combining lots of databases on citizens from federal agencies and pulling in social media content. So I think the social scores are coming. So there's 3 articles I'll reference just from last, I would say 8 days or so, right? Rights Group detail authoritarian reality of U.S. surveillance in report to UN. Car subscription features raise your risk of government surveillance, police records show. This is what we were always scared of. Doge is building a surveillance state. Okay, so let's be careful with our language here.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Yeah. So, so some of the facts. What are some of the facts that we know? Well, we know that Doge, they're still there, but they've kind of fractionally less active as they were. Why is that? Because they walked out, from what we know, with petabytes over petabytes over petabytes of data on Americans, right? What we do in this department that collects data on you, what you do in the IRS, what you do in all these. So they now have now for the first time in American history, there's an entity, it's not even an official department of the government, that has all of our data. That's why was that even allowed to happen? Is the frightening thing. I mean, we've spent years building up these walls to protect ourselves from exactly this sort of thing. Now we've consolidated all the data in one spot. What happens when somebody hacks Elon Musk or one of the Doge crew that he's got there, and now every single American's data about every part of our lives is now out for anybody to use? Okay, this is inherently a bad idea. Okay, it's troubling. The NSA head of the NSA was just fired. Why is that? Right? Is it because of Volt Typhoon and maybe that was a hey, you should have caught this and it shouldn't have happened? Or is it because you are in the way of maybe more pervasive looking at Americans as opposed to foreign actors trying to affect things happening in America? So that is very scary. There is something to be scared about. If you espouse particular opinions in this country, now you will be punished for that.
Police, yep.
One of the most painful was Chris Krebs, I mean, who I consider an American hero, literally.
Yeah.
Not only losing his security clearances, but he lost today. They took away his global entry, which, if you know what that is, it's an ability for you to go through the easy quick line through passport, so you're going through the borders, because now he's considered somehow an enemy of America, even though he's an American hero. I don't know how we got here, but is Congress going to do something, Mike? What do you think?
Well, so Senator Wyden has submitted a privacy bill, right? A privacy act that would probably, handle some of this. But are you confident that Congress is going to be able to get something like that done? I am not. Okay. But here's what gets me. If we have the capability to do this, okay, all this hoovering up all the data, social media, sentiment analysis, things like that. Okay. If we can do that, we have the capability to treat our logical border as a border, right? The great firewall of China, right? Again, looking back at China, right? They look at every packet that goes in and out of their country, right? We could do that. Okay. And we could kick out any connections that aren't adhering to a standard of behavior on our side of the demarc. All right. But we're not focusing on that. Apart from that, this has got to be illegal. Okay, as one of those articles points out. They go back to the Johnson administration that wanted to combine all federal databases into one for the purpose of removing duplicates and doing statistical analysis and things like that. And the public was outraged and they backed off. So Congress passed the Federal Privacy Act of 1974, which requires federal agencies to obtain consent before disclosing individuals' data across agencies. I have not consented. Okay. The other irony here is this. Okay. So China is the black belt of citizen surveillance, right? They're pushing that technology around the world as part of their, what do they call it? The Belt and Road Initiative?
Belt and Road Initiative, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're trying to get all this influence in other countries. And one of the things they do is they empower these other governments to control their own people in the same authoritarian way that China does. Okay. But here's the rub. We can't buy the technology from China because the tariffs would make it too expensive.
Yeah. I won't. There's the drum.
The drum hit that follows that one right now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the kicker to all this, Mike? What is the kicker for our team here?
All right. So you've been to RSA a bunch of times, as have I. All right. So you know all about this. Okay. RSA is winding down right now, and as you and I know, there's a game played on the vendor floor of the Moscone Center. Buzzword bingo. So you get a container of your favorite beverage and pick a buzzword used heavily in marketing. And every time you see it, you take a drink. Okay. Any guess as to what this year's favorite is?
Come on. It's got to be Agentic AI, right?
It is. It's okay. It's AI. Okay. Yeah. So the prediction is they said they're calling it now. Agentic AI will win RSAC buzzword bingo. All right. Now I've played that game, and this was back in the UEBA days, and we hardly made it out of there alive.
Yeah.
So with all the AI, everywhere you look, it's going to be there. Okay. So if you're at RSA, you're probably nursing a hangover right now from buzzword bingo. Yeah. So I hope you get some electrolytes soon.
Yeah. The problem with that is it should tell people something. It's so easy to add agentic AI to anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody's done. It's like, oh, we're going to slap this on here because it's so easy and it really doesn't do much, but it sure makes us look like we're AI leaders.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we got to go. Remember to sign up for the daily Infosec Insider News Blast. Watch our site for events. And Fred, see you in Scottsdale.
All right. See you there.
All right, travel safe.
Bye.
Bye.